The morning Brad called me dead weight. He did it while sipping a Red Bull and signing a drywall contract with a guy who'd once tossed himself on a ladder for TikTok likes. No joke. I was halfway through reviewing our fall protection checklist, OSHA 1926.501 if you care, when he slapped the folder out of my hand like it was a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet. "We're builders, Lena," he said, smirking like the second coming of Elon Musk in muddy boots. "Not paper pushers." "Right. Builders. Builders with no active insurance policy if someone falls off a scaffold, no licensed electrical cert on a new build, and no updated safety binder since Dad's funeral." "But sure, Brad. Go off, King. I used to think my job was boring. Dull. Invisible. I filed the workers' comp renewals. I tracked subcontractor licenses. I set the safety meeting schedules that Brad never showed up to. I made sure the damn cranes didn't swing over daycare centers or retirement homes. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept us out of court, out of bankruptcy, and, this part's crucial, out of jail. Now here's the punchline. The day Brad fired me, he said I was too cautious for the new direction. New direction being what exactly? Speed running violations? Hosting a bonfire with our liability waivers? And listen, before we get deeper into this train wreck of a saga, let me just drop one little personal ask. If you're the kind of person who gets sucked into these stories and never hits that follow button, yep, I'm talking to you. Statistically speaking, one of the 97% just freeloading like my brother on my spreadsheets. Maybe help me hit my first 10,000 subs. I mean, Brad had charisma, but I've got the receipts. Anyway, I didn't react when he tossed my badge into a half-empty Monster can. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just stared at the calendar on the wall, April 17th, the day our job site insurance policy was up for auto-renewal. I didn't say a word. I went home, logged into the company insurance portal, the one still under my email, switched the setting from auto-renew to manual approval. One click. That was it. Nothing dramatic. No flames or hacking. Just unchecking a box. Brad didn't even notice. Too busy negotiating with some vape-puffing contractor in neon joggers about shaving 2 weeks off a concrete cure schedule. After that, I went quiet. But I didn't go away. I started watching. Because caution, it turns out, makes a hell of a witness. And when you're the only one who remembers where all the foundation cracks are, well, you don't need a sledgehammer to bring the house down. You just need patience. It was a Monday morning, the kind where the sky looks like wet drywall and your coffee tastes like regret. I walked into the office like I had every other day for the past 7 years, binder in hand, hard hat hanging off my purse, and a post-it stuck to my wrist reminding me to review the new subcontractor insurance forms. I barely made it past the coffee station when Brad called out from his corner desk. It had recently upgraded from our dad's office to a beanbag and soundbar situation, claiming it was better for his workflow. "Hey Lena," he said without looking up, spinning a highlighter like a drumstick between his fingers. "Got something for you." He handed me an envelope that looked like it had been used to blot up a frappuccino spill. My name was scrawled in Sharpie on the front, no letterhead, no greeting, just 5 cold hyped sentences saying my services were no longer needed at Riley and Riley Construction, effective immediately. No explanation. No handshake. No warning. Brad finally looked at me then, with that same smug, shitting grin he used back in high school when he'd steal my fries and tell our parents I was counting carbs. "You're too cautious for where this company is headed," he said like he was delivering a TED Talk instead of tossing his sister into traffic. Too cautious. That was the phrase he clung to like it was scripture. I'd heard him use it in meetings, at vendor lunches, even once at a job fair when someone asked what my role was. "She's our brake pedal," he'd said, chuckling while I smiled through a migraine. I stood there for a full 10 seconds, letting the silence stretch like duct tape over a busted pipe. My heart thudded once, hard, then stopped caring. I folded the letter neatly, tucked it into my binder like another compliance doc, and turned around. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't even slam the door. But I did pause at my desk long enough to grab my backup drive and log into the insurance portal one last time. The page loaded slow, typical, then flashed our company's active policies across the screen. I found the big one, site liability plus workers' comp due for auto-renewal in 4 days. I scrolled down to the settings. There it was, renewal mode automatic. Click. Manual. Save changes. The site didn't even ask for confirmation. Just blinked and updated like nothing had happened. I could have been updating my favorite color or changing the time zone. That's how easy it was to take the brakes off a moving truck Brad didn't know how to steer. I walked out without looking back. Brad didn't ask for my keys, probably too high on his own adrenaline to think about access permissions. He waved at the drywall TikToker through the glass and shouted something about big plays this quarter. I passed the crew calendar on the way out, for back-to-back jobs booked on overlapping schedules. One of them in a county we weren't even licensed in. But hey, I was the problem, right? Too cautious. The first whisper came from Miguel, our old site foreman, in a text that read, "Did you know Brad skipped the city inspection on Delaney?" Just that. No punctuation. No emojis. That man once filed a fall hazard report because a stray dog pissed on a ladder, so when he sounded nervous, I paid attention. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened up the Delaney job folder on my backup drive, yes, the one Brad mocked me for labeling overkill, and checked the inspection schedule I'd created 2 months before he gave me the boot. There it was. Bolded and highlighted, city inspection, foundation and plumbing required before pour. Brad had poured 2 weeks early. I started hearing more through the grapevine. Karen, our procurement contact at Apex Supply, said Brad was ordering low-grade helmets. Told me he'd rather buy double and replace them when they break, she said. Thought it was a joke at first. It wasn't. And there was that voicemail from Danny, our electrician, who's been with the company since Dad ran things out of a Ford Econoline. "Hey Lena," he said, voice tight with frustration. "You know we haven't had a toolbox talk in 3 weeks. Guys are asking questions. Brad's just ignoring it. Said we're agile now. Whatever that means. It means stupid, Danny. That's what it means." But I said nothing. No Facebook post. No confrontational email. No legal letterhead. I watched. And I collected. See, Brad never changed the Dropbox passwords. I'd set those up under my email years ago, back when he thought cloud storage was a weather app. So while he stomped around sites in his Timberlands barking, "Go faster," like some kind of hard-hat Napoleon, I was quietly downloading contracts, my contracts, still bearing my signature and our father's old compliance notations. I screen-captured emails. I archived every policy renewal notice addressed to me, not him. I even grabbed a Slack thread where Brad told our junior PM that safety delays are for cowards and lawyers. I printed that one out and taped it inside my closet. Motivation. The deeper I dug, the more chaotic it looked. Sites with expired fire extinguishers. Scaffolding logs missing entire weeks. A fall report filed, then deleted. The bones of our company, permits, protocols, legacy vendor agreements, all still linked to my name. All traceable. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the screaming, plate-smashing way people think betrayal looks. No. I felt something cooler. Heavier. Like wet concrete in the gut. Brad hadn't just fired me. He'd gutted the company our father built with empty charm and caffeine breath, then dared to call it innovation. I could have stopped him right then. But the thing about caution? It doesn't slam doors. It waits for wind. It started with a roofing crew packing up their gear in the middle of a Tuesday. No warning. No lunch break excuse. Just harnesses unbuckled, toolboxes shut, boots stomping off-site like they were walking out of a bad marriage. The site supervisor, some fresh-faced college kid Brad hired from a marketing internship because he had good vibes, tried to stop them. Got chewed up and left holding an unopened bag of screws. The head roofer, Darnell, man who once worked 10-hour shifts with 2 broken fingers and duct-taped gloves, left behind a post-it on the porta-john door, no insurance. No liability coverage. No crew. Good luck. Brad, of course, assumed it was a bluff. It wasn't. Turns out one of the guys had checked the site binder and noticed the insurance certificate taped to the wall expired 6 days ago. No updated policy. No backup copy. No emergency contact sheet. Nothing. Just Brad's motivational quote of the day laminated on the fridge: speed beats caution. Hustle over hesitation. Irony's a damn artist sometimes. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail from OSHA. Big envelope. Heavy paper. Official enough to make my dog bark when it hit the floor. The notice inside was blunt: your company, Riley and Riley Construction, is out of compliance. Expired safety training logs. Missing documentation. Flagged inspection checklist from the Delaney site. And here's the kicker, it was addressed to me. Why? Because Brad never changed the registered compliance officer. I was still the legal point of contact in the OSHA registry. Still the name they saw when they typed in the EIN for the government. I was the safety department. For a hot second, I panicked. I thought maybe I was liable. But I wasn't. I hadn't logged a single work hour since that Monday envelope. Hadn't set foot on a job site. And I had emails, timestamps, and the termination letter to prove it. I sat down, cracked open and read the notice again, slower this time. It felt like a gift wrapped in bureaucratic ribbon. That night, Brad called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, and Lord, it was a masterpiece of delusion. Started with that phony sincerity he uses on church ladies and planning commission board members. Hey Lena, just wanted to talk. No hard feelings, right? I know things got a little weird. Just wondering if you still had access to the safety login and stuff. No big deal, just some back-end cleanup. Anyway, call me when you can, sis. Beat. And also, if you're like holding anything hostage, that's technically illegal. Just saying. I talked to someone who knows people, so yeah, let's not make this bigger than it has to be. I played that voicemail 6 times, saved it to 3 drives, forwarded it to my personal email with the subject line comedic gold. I wasn't ready to move yet. I wasn't out for blood. But I felt something hum in my chest, a low pulsing current. Not rage. Not even triumph. Satisfaction. Tiny cracks had formed in Brad's empire, and I hadn't lifted a crowbar. Not yet. The site was called Horizon Ridge, and it was Brad's crown jewel. 6 high-end townhomes slapped up in record time, sold off before the insulation even dried. Local press had done a puff piece on it, called Brad a visionary contractor bringing fresh energy to legacy builds, all because he let a drone guy film the framing crew while blasting dubstep. But that morning, it wasn't a drone that showed up. It was a white SUV with a city emblem on the door and 2 men in steel-toe boots stepping out with clipboards and grim expressions. Surprise audit. No warning. No handshakes. They walked straight past the intern with the site coordinator badge and into the makeshift trailer office where Brad was sipping protein coffee and probably practicing his TED Talk voice. He didn't even have time to hide the chaos, missing sign-in logs, fire extinguishers 2 months out of date, no visible copy of site insurance, and a safety binder so thin it could have doubled as a lunch menu. They shut the place down for 48 hours. I watched it happen in real time, through a Google alert, Horizon Ridge construction halted after compliance review, and through the panicked texts from our old foreman, who still couldn't believe I was gone. Brad blamed a clerical error. Blamed his assistant. Blamed system migration. Didn't matter. The shutdown was public. The site got taped off like a crime scene. And the thing is, the inspectors hadn't just stumbled onto that job. They were invited. By me. Sort of. 2 weeks prior I created a throwaway Gmail with a name generic enough to sound like a bored neighbor. Attached were 23 high-res photos I'd quietly taken months ago, expired first aid kits, missing scaffolding logs, an electrical panel left open near a puddle. I wrote 2 lines in the body, concerned about worker safety at Horizon Ridge. No visible compliance materials on site. These are from March. Hit send. Waited. Brad, meanwhile, was spinning like a drunk piñata. His project manager quit midweek. Clients started calling, ones who'd already cut 6-figure checks, asking why the hell their builds were stalled and why their slabs had been poured before final inspection clearance. One of them, a former Navy engineer, asked for a full safety audit before continuing payments. Brad lost it. He emailed the client something snippy, then immediately tried to recall the message. It didn't work. The client posted it to LinkedIn. The comments were delicious. Is this the kind of leadership you bring to residential builds? Yikes. Maybe slow down and learn local code, hot shot. I printed that thread out too. Pinned it next to the Slack quote in my closet. For the first time since he'd handed me that stained envelope, Brad was no longer 10 feet tall and bulletproof. He was scrambling, apologizing, offering discounts. One client posted that he offered to throw in custom stairwell lighting as a make-good on a build that was already $130,000 over budget. Desperate men say dumb things. But me? I stayed silent. Power had shifted. I didn't have to chase it. I just had to keep letting gravity do its job. And gravity, my friends, was doing work. I met them at an old diner just off Route 6, the kind with cracked red booths and waitresses who call you hon before your butt hits the vinyl. Frank and Jules. 2 of Dad's earliest clients. Contractors who knew the business back when we ran everything out of a converted shipping container and payroll was calculated on a napkin. These were men who'd seen drywall dust in their coffee and buried friends under slabs before OSHA was even a word they could spell. They weren't big on small talk. Frank stirred his coffee like it owed him money. Jules just stared. Well, Jules finally grunted, we heard your brother's making a hell of a mess. I laid out the truth. No drama. No soapbox. Just the facts. Brad had fired me. He never updated the compliance contacts. He was cutting corners, skipping protocol, and building a castle of liability on sand. They both listened without interrupting. These weren't men who scared easy, but when I told them Horizon Ridge had been shut down mid-framing because of expired coverage and falsified inspections, Frank's spoon stopped clinking. I slid over a folder. It had photos, time-stamped emails, OSHA letters, hell, even Brad's half-threat voicemail. I let them read for a minute then said, all I'm asking is a pause. Don't cut another check until the dust settles. Jules nodded. You know your dad never trusted the fast-talking types. Frank leaned back. We'll hold payments. No work until things are clarified. Keep us posted, kid. That was it. No contract. No NDA. Just a handshake and a look that said, you're the Riley we actually trusted. By Friday, fallout began. Vendors stopped returning Brad's calls. One of our regular lumber yards flagged his latest order as pending credit verification, a phrase that usually means we heard something ugly and don't want to get burned. I heard from the print shop we use for all our blueprints. They just canceled his standing order. Said his name gives them migraines. Brad, in classic fashion, tried to play offense. Sent out a mass email to the subcontractor list titled Clarifying Rumors. It read like a drunk Facebook post and ended with "We are stronger than the haters." One of the recipients forwarded it to me with the caption, "Bro having a spiritual breakdown." Meanwhile I was busy building, literally. Founder's First Construction. That's the name I filed under with the state. I pulled the Articles of Organization template from my desktop, one I'd pre-filled a year ago, back when Brad first called a broken wrist a teachable moment, instead of a workers' comp claim. I filed online, paid the fee, and by the time Brad was still stuck on hold with Apex Supply's billing department, I had a new LLC. Clean. Credible. Cautious. I registered a P.O. box, reached out to 2 old site supers who hadn't worked with Brad in over a year. One of them, Celia, said, "Took you long enough. I've got a crew ready and sick of his TikTok contractor energy." I laughed harder than I had in months. For the first time since that smudged envelope hit my desk, I wasn't just reacting. I was rebuilding. Not from spite. From foundation. He had the name. But I had the roots. The lawsuit came in a manila envelope, delivered by a 20-something with a vape pen and a neck tattoo of a phoenix hatching out of a skull. Very subtle. He looked vaguely embarrassed handing it to me outside my mailbox. "Oh, you're being sued, I guess," he mumbled, then practically jogged away like I was contagious. Inside, Riley and Riley Construction versus Lena Riley. Allegation: intentional disruption of operations, intellectual property theft, and malicious interference with ongoing contracts. I sat on my porch swing with the papers in one hand and a gas station donut in the other, chewing slowly while I read Brad's idea of a legal Hail Mary. Every paragraph oozed ego and desperation. His version of events painted me like some rogue saboteur who'd hacked the company out of pure spite. There was even a line that said, "Miss Riley acted with calculated animosity unbecoming a family." I almost choked on powdered sugar. But here's the thing about being cautious: you don't just prepare for disaster. You catalog it. So I called my lawyer. Denise. Mid-50s. Steel gray bun. Attitude like a courtroom buzzsaw. We'd met through one of Dad's old trade buddies after he lost half a warehouse to a wiring fire. I sent her everything. She called me an hour later, laughing so hard she had to put me on speaker so her paralegal could hear. Then she sent Brad a reply. Attached were 4 documents. The legacy insurance certificate, still active when Horizon Ridge launched. Still listed me as the primary policy holder and contact. Please note, Denise wrote, that cancellation occurred after Miss Riley's removal, not before. OSHA compliance registration, again, my name, my email, my phone number. All unchanged since our father's death. Because Brad never thought to update a damn thing beyond his Instagram bio. Administrative email logs, showing the exact date and time I had notified the insurance portal of my departure and toggled renewal to manual. Legal. Time-stamped. And more polite than Brad deserved. Dad's memo, typed on yellow legal pad, scanned, signed, dated 2 months before he passed. It read, "To whom it may concern, Lena Riley has full power of attorney over Riley and Riley Construction's compliance, safety, and vendor certifications in my absence or death. She knows the work. Trust her judgment." Signature, Patrick J. Riley. Witness, Jules Navarro. Denise's cover letter ended with, "Should Mr. Riley wish to pursue further litigation, we welcome the discovery phase, particularly regarding his current job site documentation and financials." Brad's lawyer ghosted us within 2 days. But Brad? He called. Blocked number. I didn't pick up. But he left a voicemail. Quiet. Shaky. None of the Red Bull arrogance or haters gonna hate chest thumping. Just, I didn't know about the memo. I didn't know. Then silence. It hit him all at once. The insurance. The OSHA. The permissions. The power. I hadn't stolen anything. I just let the house collapse after he ripped out the support beams. I didn't dance. Didn't gloat. Just sat in my truck outside a supply yard, letting that vindication hum low and steady in my chest. Not fireworks. Not champagne. Just a slow exhale through a window cracked open to the cold. Vindication doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just clicks. The notice came on a Thursday. Brad's general contractor license, suspended until further review. The state board didn't even sugarcoat it. The letter cited gross negligence, failure to maintain safety protocols, and outstanding violation reports currently under investigation, which is bureaucratic for you've been building like a jackass and now we're locking up your tools. By Friday, 2 of his projects were halted mid-frame. Horizon Ridge, of course, still sat like a skeleton orchard, empty lots with half-formed ribs of lumber and plastic-wrapped windows that fluttered in the wind like surrender flags. Another site in Green Falls went dark after the permit was retroactively revoked. The inspector actually wrote site compromised in red marker on the porta-potty door. And then inevitably came the injury. A young guy named Marcus, barely 22, one of the temp hires Brad brought in during his let's go lean and mean phase, fell off a second-story balcony. No guardrail, no harness, just air and plywood. Landed on a pile of unused ductwork. Broke his wrist, his collarbone, and his trust in every job site forever. Paramedics came, filed a report, looked around and asked where the safety officer was. Brad stammered something about being between hires. Insurance? None. Expired. Voided for non-payment. Marcus' lawyer filed a civil suit that Monday. Word traveled faster than a nail gun jam. Clients started calling en masse, demanding refunds, audits, full account transparency. One elderly couple who'd paid up front for a custom law suite showed up at the office in person, shaking a binder full of text messages Brad had never responded to. Meanwhile, I was calm, cold, focused. I wasn't dancing on his grave. I was leveling it. Denise and I prepared our own legal filing, petition to dissolve Riley and Riley Construction under breach of fiduciary duty. She crafted it like a scalpel, not a hammer. The argument was simple. Brad, as co-owner and acting operator, had violated the trust, financial responsibility, and legal obligations of the entity. With Dad gone and me ousted, there was no structural integrity left. We attached the injury report. The insurance cancellation notices. The voicemail where Brad accused me of holding stuff hostage. The OSHA letters, addressed to me, not him. And of course, the memo. The handwritten one. The one he never read. Our submission was methodical, clinical, a mercy killing wrapped in case law. I drove by the old company trailer that night. Lights were off. A stack of unopened mail lay curled in the doorway like a dead snake. The air smelled like stale coffee and sawdust dreams. A couple job site notices were still tacked up by the door, one half torn, flapping in the wind. I didn't get out. Just watched. It wasn't satisfaction exactly. It wasn't joy. It was justice, measured in inches, not applause. What Brad never understood, what he never bothered to learn, is that construction isn't just about speed. It's not about charm. It's about code. About pressure loads. About knowing what holds and what buckles. Turns out, the same rules apply to people. The room they booked for mediation smelled like burnt coffee and laminated failure, one of those conference rooms in a strip mall office park. Cheap ceiling tiles. Flickering fluorescent lights. A dusty ficus in the corner that hadn't seen a watering can since Obama was in office. Brad was already there when I walked in. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, he was still gym-tan and jacked from too many pre-workout powders, but emotionally hollow. His eyes flicked up like he expected a slap, maybe a screaming match, but I just nodded and sat down across from him. He cleared his throat, tried to smile. So this is where we are now. I didn't bother replying. Just reached into my binder, the same one he'd once laughed at for being overkill, and pulled out a folder. A thick one. I slid it across the table. He opened it. Vendor signatures. Letters from suppliers who dropped him like a bad Tinder date. Statements from 3 longtime clients, ones who'd paused payment after I asked them to, not him. Even a notarized letter from our old office manager Cheryl, who hadn't taken a vacation in 10 years but took the time to write a personal affidavit about how Brad skipped safety meetings and used petty cash to buy Bluetooth speakers for morale. He flipped through the pages, slower with each turn. And then I slid one more sheet across the table, when he didn't expect it. His signature. His letterhead. Dated a year ago. To whom it may concern, Brad Riley, hereby resign from my position and relinquish operational control of Riley and Riley Construction effective immediately. Forged. Sure. Illegal? Not if it never gets submitted. I folded my hands, calm, steady. I won't file that, I said. All I want is the company name and the website domain. That's it. You keep the debt. I walk away clean. Founders First already has the contracts, the trust, the license. You know it. I know it. Brad stared at the paper like it had teeth. He didn't speak for a long time. And when he did, it wasn't anger. It wasn't even resistance. It was grief. You were always the boring one, he muttered. The paperwork. The binders. I just thought. I know what you thought, I said. You thought if you moved fast enough, no one would notice you never built a damn thing. His fingers curled around the edges of the resignation letter. For a second I thought he might tear it up. But then he let it go. Fine, he whispered. Take it. I already had. The domain transfer hit my inbox 2 hours later. That night I sat in my truck outside our dad's favorite diner. Same cracked booths. Same flickering neon sign. I watched the rain streak the windshield and thought about how silence had become my sharpest tool. Brad wanted to move fast. Wanted flash and momentum. But I was the one who stayed behind. Who watched every joint, every bolt, every crack in the foundation. And when it all came down, I was still standing. He built faster. I built stronger. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button, unless you're my old boss. Then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes.